The first time I saw the other woman, I didn't realize she was the reason my husband stopped looking me in the eyes. She was standing outside a hotel lobby in a beige coat, holding a paper cup like she'd been waiting for someone. Her posture was familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten, the same quiet confidence I used to have before life started wearing me thin. But I didn't know who she was. Not yet. Not when I drove past her, gripping the steering wheel with sweaty hands, rehearsing the excuses I'd tell myself if this trip turned into nothing more than my imagination. I didn't know she was the woman my husband had built an entire second life with. I didn't know she'd memorized his coffee order, the way he laughed, the sigh he made before falling asleep. All I knew was that the distance between me and Daniel had grown so wide over the past few months that I'd started sleeping on the edge of the bed without realizing it. That's what happens in marriage. Things drift, inch by inch, until one day you look up and wonder when the warmth left. I pulled into the hotel parking lot, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it over the soft rain on the windshield. Daniel wasn't supposed to see me yet. I'd lied and told him my friend Lisa needed me for a last-minute emergency. He'd kissed my forehead, absent-mindedly, like someone clocking out of work, and left for another business trip. His third trip in 6 weeks. And now, here I was, following a man I wasn't even sure still loved me. The hotel lobby smelled of lemon cleaner, and the floor glistened beneath the dim winter light. People moved through the space with calm purpose, businesswomen at the bar, a couple arguing in hushed tones, a boy dragging a suitcase too big for him. Everything felt normal. Except me. I sat down on one of those stiff lobby chairs, clutching my purse to my chest like a child holding a secret. My fingers trembled as I opened my phone. Daniel's location, the one he'd shared with me years ago, in case of emergencies, told me he was somewhere upstairs. Room 512. I breathed out slowly. I wasn't the type of woman who snooped. I wasn't the type who followed her husband across state lines either. But when someone you love begins disappearing in front of you, you do strange things just to feel anchored again. I closed my eyes and reminded myself of the woman I used to be, steady, patient, soft-spoken but firm. The woman who made cinnamon pancakes on Sundays, who packed Daniel's lunch with handwritten notes, who laughed easily. But that woman had been fading, replaced by someone who stared at phone screens, waiting for goodnight texts that never came. I stood up, smoothed my hair, and walked to the elevator with shaky legs. Whatever I found behind that door, I told myself, would end the guessing. And sometimes closure is more important than peace. But before I reached the 5th floor, before the truth would break me open, I need to tell you how things were before everything changed. I always believed marriages didn't fall apart overnight. They crumble like old bread, slowly, quietly, leaving a trail no one notices until it's too late. When Daniel and I married 12 years ago, we were the couple people pointed to as solid. He was warm, intelligent, slightly forgetful in a charming way. I was organized, nurturing, the one who remembered birthdays and dentist appointments. Our home was small but filled with warmth. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin kitchen curtains, turning our wooden counter a soft gold. The radio played old jazz, low and comforting. I'd fry eggs while Daniel read the news aloud, adding dramatic commentary that made me laugh even when I didn't feel like it. We weren't perfect, no couple is, but our life had rhythm. Holidays with my sister's kids. Summer road trips with too much luggage. Late night talks about buying a bigger place. his hand always finding mine in crowded rooms. That was our normal. Then came the first promotion at his company. It was a blessing at first. More money, more opportunities. He worked longer hours, but he always came home eventually, smelling of coffee and office air conditioning, collapsing onto the couch like a man who'd earned his rest. But promotions came with expectations, and expectations came with stress. And stress, well, stress has a way of reshaping a person's heart. One night, he came home past midnight. His shirt wrinkled, tie loose, eyes tired in a way that wasn't physical. "You're working too much," I'd whispered, handing him a glass of water. He gave me a small smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. "Hey, it won't always be like this. Just a few months, I promise." I believed him. Of course I did. He was my husband. But a few months stretched into a year. Then the business trips started. At first, they were rare, once every few months. He'd pack quickly, kiss me goodbye, and return with small souvenirs, a mug, a keychain, a local chocolate bar. "Just thought of you," he'd say. But slowly, the souvenirs stopped. Then the goodbye kisses. Then the explanations. One morning, while pouring coffee, he simply said, "I'm leaving tomorrow. Chicago. Conference." No softness. No details. His eyes stayed fixed on an email on his phone. I felt something tighten inside me but forced a smile. "Okay. Do you want me to pack for you?" "No," he muttered. "I've got it." His tone held a sharpness I didn't recognize. That's when the silence began. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind that fills the air with unanswered questions. I found myself learning to cook for one, sleeping on one side of the bed, reaching out for him in the dark only to grasp cold sheets. I told myself all marriages went through seasons. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself love was patient, but I forgot love also needed to be reciprocated. One night, 2 months before everything unraveled, we sat at the dining table eating spaghetti I'd made. The steam curled upward, carrying the smell of garlic and basil, warm, familiar scents. I watched him push the food around more than he ate it. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked. Daniel looked up, startled, like he'd forgotten I was there. "Yeah. Work's just a lot right now." His fork clinked against the plate. He didn't elaborate. I nodded, pretending to accept it. But deep inside, a small, unwelcome seed of doubt planted itself. A seed that would grow roots I couldn't ignore. Doubt doesn't shout, it whispers. And the first whisper came one quiet Thursday evening. Daniel had just returned from a 3-day technology summit. He walked into the house with the distant look of someone who hadn't fully come back. His suitcase thudded onto the floor, heavier than usual. I greeted him with a soft smile, hoping he'd melt into my arms the way he used to after long trips. But he barely brushed past me. The scent hit me first, something floral, faint but unmistakable. Not the smell of hotel detergent. Not cologne. Something warm, feminine. For a moment I stood there, my hand still raised from reaching for him, a dumb little half-hug left hanging in the air. And that scent, it clung to him the way I used to. "Did you get flowers at the conference?" I joked, trying to keep my tone light. He froze for half a second too long. Oh, no. Why? You smell like jasmine, maybe? I said gently. He sniffed his shirt too quickly. Probably the hotel soap. Their stuff is weird. Then he dragged his suitcase straight into the bathroom and shut the door a little too firmly. My heart thudded. Not in fear, in recognition. Something was shifting. Over the next few weeks, the clues multiplied, subtle but sharp. His phone never left his hand. He'd angle it away from me, even when sitting on the couch. His laptop now required a password he didn't remember setting. He laughed at texts he refused to explain. And worst of all, he stopped touching me. I didn't say anything. Not yet. You'd think a woman discovering cracks in her marriage would confront them head-on, but denial can be a soft, comfortable cushion. I wasn't ready to leave the cushion yet, even as it sank beneath my weight. One night, around 1 a.m., the glow from his phone lit up the bedroom. Daniel was turned away from me, shoulders curled protectively around whatever he was reading. "Who are you texting this late?" I whispered. He jumped, actually jumped, and dropped the phone onto his pillow. "No one," he snapped. "Just work." "At 1 in the morning?" He hesitated, just a flicker, then rolled over, turning his back to me completely. "I'm tired. Good night." And just like that, the conversation was locked away. Just like everything else he didn't want me to see. A week later, while folding laundry, I noticed a shirt I didn't recognize in his travel bag. Soft fabric, in a gentle beige tone. Designed for women. Probably expensive. I held it to my nose before I realized what I was doing. There it was again. Jasmine. My hands began to tremble. The shirt slipped from my fingers and fell softly onto the carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. Part of me wanted to believe it belonged to a coworker. Maybe it was an accident, a mix-up. Hotels wash things together sometimes, right? But deep down, I already knew. I knew the way women know. The way wives sense a bruise before it forms. Still, I didn't confront him. Not then. Instead, I found myself becoming a shadow in my own home, quiet, observant, hyper-aware of every new lie he coded in casual indifference. One morning, while making breakfast, I heard him in the hallway speaking on the phone. His voice was low, warmer than it had been with me in months. "No, I miss you too," he murmured. My hand froze on the frying pan. The scent of sizzling butter filled the kitchen, thick and heavy, but I barely registered it. His footsteps came closer. I scrambled to look busy, stirring eggs I'd already scrambled to mush. When he walked into the kitchen, he startled slightly, like he'd forgotten I existed. "Who were you talking to?" I asked softly. He tensed. "Just Mark from the office." "You said you missed him?" The silence that followed felt like a curtain dropping. He laughed. The wrong kind of laugh. Forced. Dry. "God, you sound paranoid." It was an inside joke. He kissed the top of my head, another brush off, and grabbed his keys. "I'll see you tonight," he said. But he didn't come home that night. He didn't even call. He sent a single text at 10:37 p.m. Late meeting. Don't wait up. But I did. Of course I did. I waited until 3 a.m., staring at the front door like a ghost expecting another ghost to return. And while I waited, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let suspicion slowly rot our lives from the inside. I needed to know the truth, even if it broke me. 2 weeks later, after another sudden business trip, Daniel left early in the morning. He kissed the air near my cheek and muttered something about a new client out of town. He didn't specify where. He didn't specify when he'd be back. And for once, I didn't ask, because I'd already decided. I was following him. Lisa, my longtime friend, helped me plan. She sat at my kitchen table, sipping tea, while I traced Daniel's trip patterns on a notepad. "You sure you're ready for whatever you'll find?" she asked quietly. I swallowed hard. No. But I'm more afraid of living like this than I am of finding the truth. So I waited 30 minutes after he left, enough time for him to believe I was still asleep, then grabbed my coat, locked the house, and got into my car. His phone location, the one he never remembered he'd shared, guided me down the highway, across counties, then state lines. 2 hours later, it placed him at the Maplewood Inn, a quiet hotel tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore. Charming. Peaceful. A place people go to rest or to hide. And that was where I saw her. The woman in the beige coat. Jasmine perfume swirling around her like a quiet halo. Standing outside the lobby as if she'd been waiting for him. Something inside me cracked, but not the way I expected. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a small, delicate sound, like thin ice splitting under a single step. I parked, turned off the ignition, and for a moment just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. Everything that came next would change my life. But I wasn't trembling anymore. I was ready. Ready to know. Ready to face it. Ready to confront the truth, no matter how deeply it cut. I walked into that hotel lobby with a steadiness I didn't actually feel. My legs were stiff, almost numb, like my body had decided to move on instinct while my mind trailed behind. The elevator ride to the 5th floor felt endless. My reflection in the brushed metal doors looked unfamiliar, too pale, too quiet, eyes too wide. I didn't look like a wife discovering a betrayal. I looked like a woman who had been slowly grieving something long before it ever died. The hallway smelled faintly of stale carpet and the lemon cleaner they overused everywhere. I counted each door number quietly until I reached it. 512. I stared at the door for a full minute. My throat tightened. My hands felt heavy. Even then, even with all the clues, some part of me whispered, maybe there's another explanation. Hope is a stubborn thing. It clings even when it's bleeding. I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened before I touched it. And there he was, Daniel, wearing the rumpled t-shirt he usually slept in. Hair messy, like someone had run their fingers through it. And behind him, a woman's voice, light and casual, calling out, "Did you get the coffee, babe?" Babe. The words sliced through me like a blade. He froze when he saw me. Actually froze, as if I were some apparition that crawled out of the wallpaper. "Marie," he whispered. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My mouth moved, but no sound came out. I just stared at him, my husband, the man I had trusted with my life. The woman from the lobby appeared behind him, still holding her coffee cup, her eyes widening when she saw me. "Oh," she murmured and stepped back instinctively, her face paling. Daniel's chest rose sharply, and he stepped into the doorway, blocking her with his arm. "It's not. It's not what it looks like," he blurted, voice trembling. That was all he could say. After months of lies, after disappearing pieces of himself one by one, I let out a short, humorless breath. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said quietly. He flinched, not at the words but at my tone. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was just done. "Marie, listen," he began. "I drove here," I said, my voice strangely calm. "I followed you." His face drained of color. "You what? You didn't tell me where you were going. You haven't for a long time. I had to find out the truth somehow." The woman behind him shifted uneasily. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture I recognized in myself. I'm sorry," she whispered. I looked at her fully then. She wasn't a villain. She wasn't seductive or dramatic or malicious looking. She was just a woman, maybe lonely, maybe hopeful, maybe lied to. "What's your name?" I asked softly. She swallowed. "Lena." "How long have you two been seeing each other?" Daniel ran a hand over his face. "Marie, can we please talk about this somewhere else?" "No," I said, the words slicing through the air. "Right here. Right now." He hesitated. Then he stepped back, dragging a hand across his tired eyes. 3 months, he muttered. I stared at him, waiting. Something told me that wasn't the full truth. He exhaled. 6. The room spun for a moment. 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of pretending he was alone in hotel rooms that weren't hotel rooms at all. 6 months of him letting me doubt myself, my worth, my judgment, my sanity. I steadied myself with a breath. The hallway carpet blurred, then sharpened again as I blinked. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" I asked. His gaze dropped to the floor. "I didn't know how." "Is this a fling?" I asked, eyes burning. "Or were you building a life with her too?" Silence. Then, barely audible, "I don't know." The honesty cut deeper than any lie, because "I don't know" meant he had considered it. He had thought about a life without me. He had pictured something new, with her. Lena stepped forward then, voice trembling. "Marie, he told me you two were basically separated." My stomach dropped. Separated. We barely even raised our voices at home, let alone discussed separation. "Is that what he said?" I asked quietly. She nodded, shame washing over her face. "I wouldn't have. I thought you two were just staying together for convenience." Daniel winced. I closed my eyes for a moment, not because I couldn't bear to see him, but because I needed strength not to collapse right there in the hallway. When I opened them again, something inside me had shifted. The grief was still there, raw and pulsing, but hovering above it was a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I took a slow breath. Thank you for telling me the truth, I told her gently. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. I'm so sorry. Daniel reached out for me. Marie, can we please go somewhere and talk? I stepped back before his fingers touched me. No. We're not doing this in private anymore. His brows pulled tight. What do you mean? I looked him straight in the eyes, really looked, and realized I didn't know this version of Daniel. Not anymore. You've been living a second life, I said, voice steady. So we're going to end this one in the open. His face twisted. Marie, don't do this. I didn't do this, I whispered. You did. For a moment, all three of us stood there, trapped in a frozen triangle, the wife, the husband, the other woman. Then I turned and walked toward the elevator. Daniel called my name once, quietly, like a man who had already lost. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. I stepped inside and held his gaze as the doors slid shut between us. My heart broke in that moment, cleanly, decisively, like a snapped thread. But beneath the pain, there was something else. Resolve. A different kind of story had begun now. One where I wasn't the woman waiting for scraps of the truth. I was the woman ready to reclaim her dignity. And he was the man about to face the consequences of what he'd done. When I walked out of that hotel, the cold air hit me like a slap. My breath came out in small white clouds, trembling in the wind. My hands were numb, but not from the weather, from the shock settling deep in my bones. I didn't cry. Not yet. The tears were there, tucked behind my ribs, but something stronger held them back. Resolve. A quiet, steady resolve that felt foreign and familiar all at once. I sat in my car for a long moment, fingers gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand the weight of what had just happened. 12 years of marriage, shared dreams, plans, a future that now felt like a house made of paper, flimsy, fragile, and suddenly on fire. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Daniel, please don't leave. We need to talk. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I didn't respond. Instead, I typed 3 words. Lisa, are you awake? She called me immediately. Where are you? What happened? Are you okay? Her concern broke whatever composure I had left. My voice came out as a whisper. I saw her. I saw them together. Silence. A heavy, understanding silence. Tell me where you are, she said gently. But I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. No. I need to think. Marie, please don't do this alone. I'm not alone, I whispered, surprising myself. Not anymore. Because loneliness was something you feel when you're abandoned quietly, slowly, unknowingly. This wasn't quiet anymore. This wasn't slow. This was a rupture, loud, visible, undeniable. And something about the visibility of it gave me strength. Daniel had lived his double life in the shadows. I wasn't going to hide in them with him. For 12 years I protected him, shielded his flaws, covered for him when he forgot anniversaries or missed dinners, played the good wife, the understanding partner, the patient listener. But what he had done, what he had built behind my back, he had forfeited the right to be protected. Slowly, an idea formed, not out of vengeance, but out of truth. A truth that needed to be seen. Not screamed. Not weaponized. Just revealed. I started my car and drove home. The road stretched out before me like a long, dark ribbon. Every passing streetlight cast flashes of light across my windshield, each one illuminating another piece of my decision. When I finally walked into our house, my house, the silence greeted me like an old friend. This wasn't the silence of suspicion or fear. This was the silence of clarity. I turned on the living room lamp. The warm glow settled over the space, revealing all the little details of a shared life. The framed photos, the throw blanket he always stole, the wine glasses we saved for special occasions but never used anymore. I walked past each memory, feeling strangely detached. Then I sat down at the dining table, the same table where I once set 2 plates every night, and took out my notebook. I flipped to a fresh page and wrote the names of Daniel's colleagues, his family, and our close friends. Not to expose him with cruelty, but to tell the truth with dignity. People often think revenge is loud, explosive, but the most powerful form of accountability is simple honesty. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw his clothes out the window. I wasn't going to vandalize or destroy. I was just going to tell the truth, publicly, clearly, calmly. The truth he had tried so desperately to bury. I drafted a message. Simple, direct, respectful. A message that explained I had discovered Daniel's long-term affair, that we would be separating, and that I appreciated privacy as I rebuilt my life. No insults. No details meant to wound. No dramatics. Just facts. When I finished writing it, I stared at the words. They felt heavy but right. Then I printed 2 copies, one for his company's HR office, and one for the leadership team who had approved his travel expenses for months. If he had been lying to me, he might have been lying to them too. The truth deserved the sunlight, he denied it. I placed the papers in my bag and sat quietly in the dim light, listening to the ticking of the wall clock, each tick a tiny reminder that time moves forward, whether we're ready or not. Daniel came home 3 hours later. I heard his key in the lock before I saw him. The door opened slowly, as if he feared what was waiting behind it. He stepped inside, eyes wide, chest rising and falling like he couldn't catch his breath. "Marie," he said carefully, "please just let me explain. I didn't stand, didn't yell, didn't cry. I simply looked at him. What would you like to explain?" I asked softly. He sat across from me, elbows on the table, hands clasped together. His fingers trembled slightly. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he said. "I didn't mean for you to get hurt." A small, bitter laugh escaped me. "You didn't mean for me to find out," I corrected gently. He looked down. I watched him closely, the man I thought I knew, sitting in the house we built together, unable to meet my eyes. "Do you love her?" I asked. His throat bobbed. "I don't know," he whispered, the same answer that had gutted me in that hotel hallway. I nodded slowly. "That's enough." He frowned. "Enough for what?" "For me to be done." His eyes snapped up, desperate. "Marie, please, we can fix this." "You didn't break a plate, Daniel. You broke a marriage." He leaned forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled mine back. That was the moment he realized something had shifted in me. Not anger, not hatred, but the quiet resolve of someone who will no longer carry weight that isn't hers. I don't want revenge, I said. But I won't protect your lies anymore. His face paled. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell the truth. Complete silence filled the air, thick and suffocating. His voice cracked. To who? To everyone who deserves to know the man you've become. His breath stuttered. Marie, no, please, I could lose my job. I lost much more. He bowed his head into his hands, the posture of a man finally understanding the cost of his own decisions. I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked toward our bedroom door. Tomorrow morning, I said quietly, your double life ends. And I closed the door behind me. The next morning, dawn crept into the house softly, rosy light slipping through the blinds, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. It should have been a peaceful morning, but peace wasn't something Daniel and I shared anymore. He didn't sleep that night. I could hear him pacing the hallway, pausing outside our bedroom door as if he wanted to knock. He never did. By 7 a.m., I was dressed, calm, composed in a way that felt surreal. My hands were steady as I folded the printed letters into crisp envelopes. They felt heavier than they should have, not because of paper, but because of truth. When I walked into the kitchen, Daniel was sitting at the table, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor as though the answers he wanted might rise from the grain of the wood. His voice cracked when he spoke. Marie, please, don't do this. I slipped the envelopes into my bag. I'm not doing anything to you, I said quietly. I'm simply refusing to carry your lie anymore. He ran his hands through his hair, letting out a shaky breath. I made a mistake. You made 6 months of mistakes, I corrected gently. And I lived all 6 months thinking I was the reason you were unhappy. His eyes glistened, whether from shame or fear, I couldn't tell. Can we please just handle this privately? He asked, voice almost childlike in desperation. I gave him a long, tired look. Daniel, you handled it privately. Your whole affair was private. Your entire second life was private. I paused. This part, the consequences, those are public. He let out a strangled sound, something between a breath and a broken plea. But I couldn't comfort him. Not this time. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. He didn't follow. Daniel worked at a mid-sized architectural firm downtown, the kind with glass walls and modern steel fixtures meant to project transparency, even though people inside them buried secrets like everybody else. The lobby receptionist recognized me immediately. Oh, Marie. I haven't seen you in a while, she said brightly. Are you here to drop off something for Daniel? Yes, I said with a polite smile. I need to speak to HR, please. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, maybe surprise, maybe curiosity, but she didn't pry. Bless her for that. She made a call, then directed me upstairs. The HR office was quiet, warm, with the scent of fresh coffee lingering in the air. The manager, a kind-faced woman named Brenda, greeted me with professional concern. Marie, is everything okay? You look calm but serious. I nodded. I'm here to report something important that involves Daniel. Her expression softened into something like empathy. "I'm listening." I handed her the first envelope. She unfolded the paper with careful hands, scanning the words slowly. Her lashes fluttered once, the only outward reaction. When she finished, she folded the paper back up, placed it neatly on her desk, and took a steady breath. "I'm very sorry," she murmured. "We had no idea." "I didn't either," I replied softly. "Not until yesterday." She nodded slowly, understanding more than she said. "If what you've written is accurate," she said gently, "then Daniel has misused company travel funds, misrepresented trip purposes, and violated policy. We will investigate immediately." I simply nodded. I wasn't doing this to destroy him, but consequences had to land somewhere, and for too long I had absorbed every one for him. Before I left, Brenda touched my forearm gently. "This couldn't have been easy," she said. "No," I whispered, "but living in the dark was harder." The next stop was his parents' house. They had always been kind to me, warm, traditional, not intrusive. His mother used to brag that Daniel married up because I was steadier than he was, better with responsibilities, better with emotions. She opened the door with her usual smile, but it faded when she saw my face. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I handed her the second envelope. She read it in silence. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Daniel, our Daniel. He would never, he—" She broke off, tears gathering. "I'm so sorry." I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault, or mine." Her husband joined us moments later. He read the letter with jaw clenched tight, anger simmering beneath his calm. "That boy," he muttered, voice low. "I raised him better than this." "He lost his way," I said softly, "but maybe this will help him find it." His mother nodded, wiping her eyes. "Are you leaving him?" "Yes," I whispered. "I have to." She pulled me into her arms. "You deserve better," she said fiercely. And for the first time since discovering the affair, I felt safe. When I returned home that afternoon, Daniel was sitting on the front steps, head in his hands, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The moment I stepped out of the car, he stood. "You went to my job." "Yes." "You told HR." "Yes." "You told my parents." "Also yes." He let out a sharp breath, pacing in front of me. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he shouted. It was the first time he had raised his voice during this entire ordeal. The neighbors' curtains shifted. Someone paused while jogging down the street. I didn't flinch. "Yes," I said calmly. "I told the truth, and humiliated me in the process." I met his gaze squarely. "You humiliated yourself." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked like a man gasping for oxygen in a room full of air. "You've ruined everything," he whispered hoarsely. "No," I said gently. "You ruined our marriage. I'm just refusing to help you hide it." His face crumpled, not from anger this time, but from something far more painful, realization. The kind you can't outrun. He sank onto the steps again, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook, quietly, unevenly. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But sympathy is not the same as reconciliation. I sat one step above him, keeping my distance. "Daniel," I said softly, "I'm not punishing you. I'm letting the consequences of your choices reach you. You've been living without accountability for months." He didn't look up. I continued, my voice steady but not unkind. "And maybe facing this publicly is the only way you'll ever learn from it." His breath shuddered. His fingers dug into his hair. For once, the weight wasn't on me. It was on him, fully, finally. And that was the moment he truly broke. Not from humiliation, but from truth. That night, after everything settled into the heavy silence of our unraveling marriage, I sat on the living room floor alone. The house felt too large, too echoing. Every shadow felt like a memory, every piece of furniture a reminder of a life I thought I had. The truth is, endings don't happen in one moment. They happen slowly, then all at once. And afterward, there's a strange emptiness where the hurt used to be, like a storm that finally moves on, leaving quiet debris behind. I stayed on the floor until the moonlight faded from the window. Just breathing, just existing. And then, as quietly as dawn, healing began. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't magical. It didn't come with fanfare or breakthrough. It came in small, human moments. The first thing I did the next morning was walk to the mirror. I studied my reflection, really studied it. The fine lines near my eyes, the tired shadows on my cheeks, the softness in my jawline, the quiet strength behind the exhaustion. I wasn't the woman he left behind. I was the woman who survived him. Then I opened my closet and began sorting. Not because I needed to clean anything, but because I needed to claim space again. For months, my life had revolved around wondering where Daniel was, who he was with, why I wasn't enough. My world had shrunk, compressed into the size of a phone screen and late-night doubts. Now I was expanding again. I packed his things carefully into boxes. Not angrily, not violently, just with intention. Every folded shirt, every pair of socks, every old college hoodie, all of it went into the boxes like pieces of a life that no longer belonged in mine. The house grew lighter with every box. I called Lisa. "I'm starting the separation paperwork today," I said. My voice didn't shake. "Good," she whispered. "You sound freer." I felt freer. Fragile, but freer. A few days later, I received a call from an unexpected number. "Lena." Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Marie." I wanted to apologize again. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the sincerity in her tone. "I appreciate it," I said gently. "I didn't know," she continued quietly. "He told me he was unhappy, that you two were living separate lives. I swear I never wanted to hurt anyone." "I believe you," I said, and I did. She exhaled shakily. "I ended things. Immediately. I told him never to contact me again." My heart ached a little for her, not because she lost him, but because she realized she'd been used too. "He lied to both of us," I said. She sniffed. "You didn't deserve this." "No woman deserves this," I replied softly. There was a long pause. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands, I'm here, she whispered. I almost laughed at the strange tenderness of it, the other woman offering comfort. But she wasn't my enemy. She had been misled just as deeply as I had. Thank you, I said sincerely. When I hung up, I felt something surprising. Closure. Not from Daniel, but from truth. With the separation underway, I focused on rebuilding. Not the house, not the marriage, but myself. I started small. A walk every morning. A cup of tea in the quiet afternoon. Reading the books I'd set aside for years. Cooking for one without feeling lonely. I returned to pottery classes, a hobby I abandoned when life got busy. The feel of clay under my hands grounded me. Shaping something from nothing reminded me that I, too, could reshape my life. I fixed the leaky faucet Daniel always promised to repair. I painted the guest room the soft sage color I always loved. I bought fresh flowers, for myself, not for visitors. And with every small act, the house slowly transformed from ours into mine. One afternoon, while repotting a fern on the porch, Daniel's mother stopped by. She held a warm casserole dish and wore an expression halfway between guilt and affection. I don't want to lose you too, she said softly. You won't, I assured her. She touched my cheek with maternal love. Good, she whispered, because I still think of you as family. Her kindness was a balm I didn't know I needed. When Daniel and I finally met to sign papers, he looked worn out, thinner, older, like the consequences had aged him faster than time ever could. He sat across from me at a neutral office table, hands clasped tightly. Marie, he said quietly, I'm sorry. There was genuine remorse in his eyes, tired, broken remorse. But something inside me had shifted too far to reach back. I know, I said gently, and I hope someday you forgive yourself. His voice cracked. Do you forgive me? I looked at him, really looked, and realized I didn't hate him. Hate is heavy. I didn't want to carry it. I forgive you, I said softly. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it's not the same as staying. His shoulders slumped, not in anger, but in acceptance. We signed the papers. A chapter closed quietly between us. When we walked out of the building, he stopped me. I hope you find someone who treats you the way you deserve to be treated, he whispered. It was the first truly selfless thing he'd said in months. I hope you learn from this, I replied. He nodded. We parted without bitterness, just the quiet sadness of two people who lost their way. Months passed. I wasn't fixed. There were days when memories still stung. There were mornings I woke up reaching for a presence that wasn't there. But then there were moments of beauty too. Spring sunlight warming my kitchen floor. Coffee with Lisa, filled with laughter instead of tears. A neighbor dropping off fresh tomatoes from her garden. A group of women at pottery class inviting me for dinner. The soft hum of peace returning to my home. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sky blush into colors, I realized something profound. My life hadn't ended. It had shifted, and then opened. The betrayal had scarred me, yes, but it had also freed me from a marriage built on half-truths and quiet desperation. I wasn't less because he left. I was more because I stayed with myself. Sometimes when I sit alone in my quiet house, my home, I think back to that woman I was before everything broke open. The woman who waited up at night, checking her phone. The woman who apologized for things she didn't do. The woman who shrank herself to fit inside a marriage that had already emptied her out. I ache for her. I admire her. But most of all, I thank her because she kept going, even when she didn't know she could. She followed the truth, even when it terrified her. And she walked away with dignity, even when her heart was in pieces. Life has a way of revealing people, not when everything is comfortable, but when everything is falling apart. My husband showed me who he truly was, and in the ashes of that truth, I discovered who I truly am. Now, my mornings are different. Quiet, slow, healing. I make my own breakfast, the kind I like, not the kind I made because he preferred it. I walk around the house humming, letting the sunlight kiss my face. And I've learned that peace isn't something you find in another person. It's something you build, day by day, inside yourself. So if you're listening to my story tonight, if you're nursing a wound someone else caused, if you're wondering whether you're strong enough to let go, let me tell you gently, from someone who learned the hard way, you are. You absolutely are. People will disappoint us, betray us, lie to us in ways we never imagined. But we decide what happens next. Do we carry their burdens as our own? Or do we set them down and walk toward the life we deserve? I chose the walk, and it led me back to myself. Now I want to ask you, dear listener, if you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Would you have exposed the truth, or kept the peace in silence? Tell me in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if my story reached your heart tonight, go on and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until then, take care of your heart. It's the only one you've got.